Hi there, I'm Eric Wordweaver Sjerven, Gothi of the Ridgar folk here in East Texas. I'd like to welcome you to The Raven's Call. This is a show where I ramble on about different heathen-related subjects and whatever strikes my fancy at the time. So, I'd like to welcome you to the first video in the series on the soul complex. Now, if you don't understand where I'm coming from and all this, stop this right now, go back, watch the preface to the Heathen Soul Complex video, the one that was published right before this. And this is video 1 in the series, but you need the preface to understand where I'm coming from and why we're doing what we're about to do. Again, I will give the disclaimer just so it's in this video like it's in the other one. This is how I see the soul complex. This is not how anybody else may see it. It's very personal, very one-to-one. This is all based on my research, my personal insights, and how I've developed my views over the years. Okay, so take that as it is. Use this to inform your own views and develop your own stuff. Okay, so nonetheless, you will see me reference this great big book over here. Yes, I do my research, and I got stuff that I need to go through, and I will be pulling terminology back and forth. Like I said in my previous video, I will use some Old English and some Old Norse words. Part of it is because the Old English, anglo-saxon side of things had more codification for the soul. I am a complex guy, so I like codification. I like to give things labels and names and things like that. And then, of course, some of the elements are Old Norse because I am more Old Norse Icelandic in my stylings and my aesthetic. And then, of course, a lot of these things do come from modern constructs, modern understandings of the soul with an application of Old Norse and Old English terminology. So I kind of utilize some of that as well. So, all right, the first section we're going to go into, I'm just going to call the mind. Okay, this is something that I am encompassing all of the human psyche aspects. All right, this is a part that really fascinates me because my degree is in psychology, and I love to see how all of these different soul elements match up with neuropsych, sensation and perception, cognitive behavioral aspects, all of this. I love how well these jive together. And so this is something that really moves me, and I love to see it. So the first section we're discussing is the mind. This is what we're going to use to refer to the entirety of the mental capacity. Everything from thoughts to memories to emotions, all of that is tied up in what we're calling the mind. Now the first area that we're going to cover in the mind is what I'm going to call the min, which is min as in memory. Min, M-I-N, min is the area of the soul that governs past experience, memory, things that have been encoded into the brain over time. And this is going to be, it envelops both an element of short-term memory, but especially long-term memory. Min is the well of the mind into which memories go, where they are stored. Now there's another element to the min, which is kind of a coupling aspect, and this is what we call the urthank. The urthank, which is it roughly translates to like orlog, like the primal layer, the urthank, or the primal thought. This is the inherited element of, say, tribal memory, family memory, that genetic memory that's passed along with the family. These are the instinctual things that are kind of burned into the mind. This is it comes on the system, as it were. So those things that are passed down from ancestor to ancestor to ancestor to us, these little snippets, these little insights, these little wisdoms, these things that even modern medicine and technology is beginning to recognize a certain element of genetic memory, these are the things that are involved in urthank. Okay, so we have min, which is where the memory is stored. There's not a whole lot to that, just because it's simply the memory. This is where things are encoded. This is the well. This is the store. This is where things go. And we're going to come back to this well later on to pull memories up and put them into the working memory here in a little while. But remember, min is the memory. Urthank is the inherited tribal insight or familial genetic memory. Okay, so the second aspect of the mind that we're going to discuss is what I call the hugr. This is the realm of thought. This is the part of the brain that's associated with, say, the forefront, the forebrain elements, plus some of the other active elements of the brain. You know, with min, we have the passive storage of memory. It is the well from which we draw the waters that feed the rest of the mind. Huger is where the work is done. It's the thought processes. It's the active thought and the seat of logic in the brain. Keep in mind, this is logical thought. This is not dealing with emotion yet. That comes in a separate section. This is logical, rational thought. Logic centers how these things work. Now, keeping in mind that the Huger itself covers rational, logical thought. Not emotion and stuff yet. Now, we're not getting into the abstract things like that yet. We're talking about just the pure mechanics of thought and the processes from sensation perception all the way up to, just rational cognitive processing. The active part of cognitive processing. The min is the passive storage. Huger is the active processing of information and data. Data. We're thinking about data in these terms, okay? The first little section under that, the first little piece of the Huger that I want to discuss is what we refer to as the angit. Okay? If you ever see me look down over here, it's because I'm referencing my notes, because I do have a notepad right here that I keep coming back to make sure that I stay on task. Okay? So, the angit is a sensory part of the soul complex. Now, I don't know if I've said it before in this video yet, but I will here just to reiterate if I haven't. I do not see the soul as being separate from the body. I don't have that dualistic dichotomy element. I see the two as being very intrinsically tied to one another. One cannot exist without the other. As such, I would say that I am not taking away functionality from the brain and assigning it to the soul. I am saying that the soul, in combination with the body, the body and the function of the brain is the physical manifestation of what the soul is doing. So both are needed to achieve this, but these are the soul elements, the soul energies that are feeding those particular processes, both within the brain and within the soul. So the angit is the sensation and perception center of the brain. The angit is where raw data is brought in, and it is processed and shunted out to the rest of the brain to be further processed and synthesized. Now, this mirrors the basic elements of sensation and perception, wherein information is brought in through visual, sensory, visual, tactile, auditory, olfactory senses. When we take all of this raw data, this raw information in, it is processed through the midbrain and out into the rest of the brain. This is similar to how the angit works. You're talking about sensation and perception, essentially. Raw data is brought into the angit, and then that information is shunted out throughout the rest of the brain. So this is the soul complex element that works alongside that, the fueling force that helps to assign value and context to these individual stimuli, and then shunts them away to the different portions of the mind that they need to go to in order to be processed. So it's kind of a central processing hub of just simply raw data comes in and is sorted out to where it needs to go. Now the second section underneath the Huger that we're going to discuss is what I call the Sjerven. And the Sjerven, which is an old English term, this is what I refer to as the center of thought and reasoning in the brain. So you've got the Huger, which is the rational side of the brain that encompasses all of these, but the section underneath it, where the seat of reason is, where the seat of consciousness, if you will, is, this is the active point of thought. This is where the action is taking place. This is the Sjerven. Now the Sjerven roughly takes the role of what the forebrain does within the brain itself. And so within the mind, it is that active executive functioning. It is that portion of the mind that takes the raw data from the angit and decides what to do with it. It pulls memories from the min through a function that we'll see here in just a minute, and it decides what to do with it. It's active thought. So it correlates to working memory, the RAM in a computer, where min is the ROM in the computer. So this is the working space where things are going on. This is an interaction between RAM and the central processing unit after a fashion. So within the brain, this is the active centers of thought, the forebrain, the executive functions, the decision making, the element of consciousness that we see. So that is the Sjerven. It's responsible largely for the higher brain functions that we see. Now, the next part of the hygge that we're going to discuss is that what we call the wit. Now, the wit is active memory retrieval. Someone with a quick wit is someone that can pull something from memory forward, is very creative, etc., because they've got good back and forth contact between the sefa, the thought process, and the min, the well of memory. So the wit is that active force of, it's the bucket that you're throwing down and cranking back up. It's not just the bucket, but the active force of retrieval. You know, it's your gopher. It's the messenger pigeon that carries stuff from the library over to the guy who's working at the desk 3 buildings over because he needs it right then. So the quicker the wit, the smarter and faster a person is, because the quicker they can respond, because they pull from the memory and feed that active thought. So that's the wit, all right? So we have the ange, which brings in raw data, and we have the sefa, which is the active center of thought, the seat of reason, where thought processes occur, the complex thoughts, higher brain functions. And then we've got the wit, which is that active force that runs between that aspect, the hygge, and the min, to bring the memories up to the surface so that we can access those things. Okay? So that is the wit. The next section of the mind that we're going to talk about, because we've talked about the min, the memory center, we've talked about hygge, the thought center. The next section is kind of a counter to all of the hygge. It's the other side of the brain. Now, I don't give this one a particular name, at least I didn't stumble across a name for that particular grouping, just that it is a grouping that I throw all of these things into. Largely because it wasn't, I think, codified in such a way in anything that I read. Rather, I just kind of lumped them together because it made sense to me. So, this is the area of the mold, the old, and the will. Okay? Now, underneath this section, what we're going to refer to as the mold. The mold is the emotional center of the brain. Now, this correlates heavily with the limbic system in the body. So the limbic system would be the physical manifestation of the actions of the mold in the spirit. The mold, M-O-D, and it's the Icelandic diphthong, DTH. I forget what that's called. Anyway, the mold is the center of emotions. This is where emotional data is processed and emotional value is assigned to things based on what we see and what we interact with, what we find in the world. So this is an area that is linked heavily to the qualities of boldness and of honor. It's the part that masters the emotions. You know, raw emotional data is informed by hormones. It's informed by adrenaline. It's you know, your own natural predispositions on things. These emotions come to rest and come to process in the mold. Now, the mold is what we would call in the psych world the EQ, the emotional quotient, whereas the IQ is seated in the hygge. So, you know, the how smart you are, etc., is in dealing in the hygge. The stronger the hygge, the smarter you are, kind of thing. With the mold, the stronger it is, the more empathic and the more capable you are of processing emotions. Okay? Now, not everybody's going to be in perfect balance on these things. Different people have different elements of the soul that are stronger than others. I have discovered this through my own experiences. Some people have an incredibly strong hygge, where they're just smart as a whip, but like no mold. No mold at all. They've got no emotional capacity for understanding. You know, they feel the emotions, but they don't understand them. And some of them barely even feel the emotions. So the mold encompasses both the sensation aspect of emotion as well as the processing of emotion, the assigning of value to the emotions. So that's that. The next center that we're going to talk about is what I call the odr. The odr, or it's the O-D with the /R. This is an Old Norse term that cognates with the term wold, now, which is an Old English term. This is most frequently translated to madness, I have seen it described as the divine spark of madness in the soul. This is part of the mind complex, but I don't necessarily see it as being centered in the brain. This is what I call the gut. Okay, this is your gut feeling. This is insight. This is raw, pure, divine inspiration. Okay, this is something that I go back and forth with because I did get into a discussion with a hardcore recon on this here recently. I see the old as a part of the soul complex, as a location within the soul complex. And I see the divine madness that he translates to, this kind of almost possession. For instance, when he references wold, because he is an anglo-saxon heathen, when he references wold within relation to like the wild hunt, there's a processional where the Manabund, the young men in the tribe, and again, I'm not 100% on this because I'm not Anglo-Saxon, so forgive me if I screw some of this up. Anyway, this particular group of young men in the tribe would take on the souls of the ancestors as a processional. This was something that seems to be documented throughout history. And they would run through the streets with the masks and bring the processional through as the wild hunt riding through the village. So this kind of possession is what he refers to as wold. Now, to me, that is a manifestation of the capacity of the Odr, or the wold, in the soul complex. It is the seat of this divine madness. When I see that the gods created mankind, when Odin, Honor, and Lodr took Ask and Embla and they created them and gave them, form, they gave them life, they gave them vitality, all of this. This is one of the things that was left behind. We're going to come back to Odin giving the divine breath, the gift of that breath of life. But in doing so, in giving that breath of life, when Odin did this, I feel like, from what I've seen and from my own experiences, that he left behind an ember of divine madness within all of us, that little spark of the divine. And I think that little spark of the divine is actually what sets us apart from the other Vetir of the land, that part that drives us to create. Because I see creation as the realm of the gods. Now, other animals, other Vetir within the world can procreate, and they have limited creation capabilities based on need and necessity within a pragmatic sense. However, abstract creation of art and music and philosophy, these things that are the capabilities of mankind as we strive to achieve similarity to the godhood, is that gift from the gods, that little spark that sets us apart. It's that burning need to create, that burning need to understand, to create new memories, to create new ideas, things like that. It is the old is the seat of that divine madness, that is the zone that athletes get into when they reach that altered state of consciousness, the runner's high, the fighter's zone. It is the seat of the writer's inspiration, when the pen starts to flow and you no longer feel like you're in control, rather that you're channeling what you're writing onto the page. It is the source of a poet's gift. It is where the greatest of musics are born. It's an altered state of consciousness, and that is because you shift the thinking from the Hygger to the Odr. And so you are channeling that divine energy. I see the Odr as kind of a gateway between the divine and the profane, the mortal realm around us. So it's our little piece of the divine, which serves kind of as a beacon, a go-between, a conduit, if you will, for those divine energies. And so we channel those out in our most creative fashions. I'm going to come back to the Odr, because this is something that very much fascinates me. It's something that I very much want to explore in future videos. So suffice it to say, it's the seat of divine madness, and it is the source of creativity in mankind, the drive, inspiration, the fire that drives this kind of thing. So it's how I see it. Keep in mind, not everybody's going to see it that way, but this is how I see it, and it's essential to understanding some of my worldview as we go along. whatever that matters to you. The next section of the mind that we're going to discuss is that of the will. This is the active force. This is the gift of honor to Ashkenembla. Will. It is vitality. It is self-determination. It is the drive to put things into action. It is the force that transitions from the mental space into the physical space. It translates all of this into something that the body can use. Okay? It is the drive that turns these things into being. We all know willpower. We all know that the will is something that has its own strength. It is an element of the main, of motor och megen, or of might and main. The main is the sum of the spiritual strength of an individual. And this is a very strong part of it. It is the driving force of it. This is the will. You have the will to do something. You know, you can think all day long, but it's will that puts it into force. So will manages the emotions of the mold. It puts into action the thoughts of the hygge, and it tames and directs the raw energies of the other. You know, this is, the will is the driving force. This is the part of the body, the mind-soul complex that pushes forth and really drives things. You know, because each of these different elements makes up what we know as the mind, the mental capacity, the seat of personality, things like that. And the will is what translates that into reality. It forces from the mental scape into the physical scape through sheer willpower. So this is essentially how I see the mind breaking down. You have the mindful right brain and the logical left brain, the thoughtful left brain. So the realm of Munin, which one of Heathen and Munin, Odin's ravens. Heathen is thought, Munin is memory. And that's the sides that they encompass. You know, Munin encompasses the min, he encompasses the mold to a certain element, the older. And then Heathen, the thoughts of the hygge, and all those active elements. So together they work together to make the mind of the individual that we know. Now, all of this plays a part. You know, when you go in and you start to look at different elements, you know, I can correlate things, and I will in future videos. I'll kind of discuss these different elements and how they play out, but I kind of wanted to give a basic understanding here that, let's say that within the soul complex, if someone has a damaged mental soul aspect part, it would manifest itself in the physical world, in the physical body, in different ways. For instance, if the angit was damaged, a person might inexplicably lose sight or sound, or the inability to recognize certain elements. Like, for example, certain aphasias would fall under the angit, the ability to recognize and codify like faces or different words. These things, you know, when it comes, the raw data comes into the angit, and it doesn't understand how to process or what to do with it, it's because that part of the angit is damaged or weakened. Similarly, if the min is damaged or weakened in some way, we can lose memories. If the wit is damaged, the go-between between the hygge and the min, then things aren't put into memory or pulled back from memory effectively. So we get our anterograde and retrograde amnesias as a result. There are a lot of different correlational elements to the mind and how the physiological brain works within neuroscience and within psychology in general. And I intend to do some more breakout things on those in the future. If you're interested in them, keep an eye on the channel. I'll pop them up from time to time. But all of these pieces have to work in conjunction together in order for the person to be this happy, healthy, whole heathen that I like to bring up. So this is just the first section. This is the section of mind. We, of course, have got the sensation perception elements. We've got the active thought processes, memory, emotion, willpower, and then that drive, that divine inspiration that's suited at the what I call the gut, your gut instinct. So again, I'm going to do more on the odr in the future, especially since I have a particularly unique view of it from what I've seen. But it's how I see it, so take it or leave it. It's up to you. Now, next portion of the videos that we will do, video number 2 in this series, will be on the spiritual centers of the soul complex. That'll make a little bit more sense in the next video. So stay tuned. That'll be coming next week. I try to do these on a week-to-week basis with a release date of Wednesdays as I can. Why Wednesday? Because Odin, why not? It's just what works for me scheduling wise. That's all. I have to have time to process and all that stuff. So Wednesday just seems to be my day. So if you like what you see in the videos, please give a like below, give the thumbs up, shoot a comment in the section. Disagree with me? Want to know a little bit more? Come on, shoot me a comment. Let me know. I've had some very interesting conversations with people and comments so far. I try to respond to everybody if I can. If I can't exactly respond to you at that time, I'll at least give you a thumbs up or something to say, hey, cool, thank you for commenting. Love this. Even if it's a dissenting view, I love to sit and converse. Now, please, no trolls. But, you know, because I will delete troll comments. Sorry, guys. That's not what this is about, all right? So give a subscription to the channel. You know, hit subscribe down there if you want to keep up with what's going on. But you've got to ding the little bell. You got to ding the notification bell. I've discovered that if you don't ding the bell, you're not going to get all the videos. Notification doesn't, just subscribing doesn't put everything in your subscription line. You got to hit notification bell if you want to see everything that comes out. You can catch me on Facebook at Word-Weaver Productions. That's the Facebook group where I come in and discuss these videos that I'm doing. I get insights from you guys, share all my videos there. And we also use it as a little networking tool amongst the viewing groups out here. At the time of this video, like I said in my previous one, there's about 109 different viewers. And there's like 40 people in the Facebook group. So get out there, join the group, and connect with people, you know, join a conversation. Let's talk about the videos. It doesn't just have to be talking with me. Talk with each other. It's fun. Follow me on Twitter at _Sjerven. That's SJERVEN. Or you can email me at esjerven@gmail.com. Again, that's ESJERVEN @gmail.com. Hit me up with any questions you might have. Give me some feedback. Let me know what you guys are thinking of the videos. Don't roast me alive on this one, guys, please. Like I said, this is how I see the soul complex, and this is just the first part of it. Wait until we get to some of the more abstract stuff. It's going to be fun. So, hail. Have a good day.